These are the most dangerous cults to ever exist. Not just groups with strange beliefs. These are organizations that manipulated, controlled, and destroyed lives. That convinced ordinary people to commit unspeakable acts. That turned devotion into violence. And left behind body counts that shocked the world. Let us talk about what happens when charisma meets delusion, when faith becomes control, and when followers stop asking questions. Narcosatanists, Adolfo Constanzo. Adolfo Constanzo grew up in Miami in the 1960s. Raised by a mother who practiced Palo Mayombe, a Cuban religion that involves animal sacrifice and speaking to the dead. In the 1980s, Mexico's drug trade was growing fast. Constanzo saw an opportunity and moved to Mexico City to offer his services to drug cartels. He convinced drug traffickers that his rituals could keep them safe from police and out of prison. He called himself El Padrino, meaning the Godfather. Drug lords paid him large amounts of money to perform rituals before drug runs and police raids. It worked. Or at least they believed it did. Shipments made it through. Raids went wrong. Constanzo's reputation grew. And as his power grew, Constanzo started to believe his own ideas. He pushed the rituals further. Animal sacrifice was no longer enough. He told his followers that freshly killed humans worked better. That human brains and spinal cords gave the rituals more power. His inner circle began kidnapping people off the streets of Matamoros. Homeless people. Migrant workers. People no one would miss. They brought them to a ranch outside the city. And they killed them. Slowly. Ritually. Cutting out organs. Boiling brains in cauldrons. All while Constanzo performed ceremonies and told his followers they were protected by dark forces. In March 1989, an American college student named Mark Kilroy disappeared during spring break near the U.S.-Mexico border. He was walking back to his hotel with friends when he was grabbed off the street. Because Kilroy was American, the U.S. government pushed Mexican police to look into it. And that pressure led them to a ranch outside Matamoros called Rancho Santa Elena. Police found 15 bodies buried on the property, all showing signs they had been tortured and ritually killed. Kilroy was among them. His brain had been removed, along with his spine. For one of Constanzo's rituals. Constanzo fled to Mexico City. When police surrounded his hideout weeks later, he knew what was coming. He knew that crossing the cartels meant a slow and painful death in prison. So he chose not to be taken alive. He ordered a follower to shoot him. The follower obeyed. Constanzo was 26 years old. 14 followers were arrested. But the belief that brought them together never went away. Palo Mayombe is still practiced inside Mexican prisons and among cartel members today. And Constanzo's legacy lives on in the rituals some cartels still use before major operations. Mixing faith, violence, and superstition into something truly terrifying. Aum Shinrikyo, Shoko Asahara. Founded by Shoko Asahara in 1984 in Tokyo, Aum Shinrikyo began as a small yoga class. Asahara told his followers he was both Christ and Buddha, and that the United States would soon launch a nuclear war that would kill most of the world. Only his followers would make it out alive. To prepare, he needed money, and people with the right skills. The group grew to 10,000 members in Japan and 30,000 in Russia. With that many followers came money, and the group was soon worth over $1 billion. Asahara used that money to bring in scientists, doctors, and engineers, and put them to work making weapons, including sarin gas, anthrax, and Ebola. They built up enough sarin to kill 4 million people. To make killing easier, Asahara taught that murdering an enemy was an act of mercy. Death, he said, saved them from bad karma. If you killed someone who was destined to do evil, you were actually helping them, by stopping them before they accumulated more bad karma. It was twisted logic, but his followers believed it. Violence started in 1989 when members killed a lawyer building a case against them, along with his wife, and their 14-month-old son. The entire family. Erased. The next year, Asahara ran for parliament, convinced his group was meant to rule Japan. They lost. Badly. He believed democracy would never give him power, so he decided to take it by force. In 1994, they released sarin in the city of Matsumoto, killing 8 and injuring 600. It was a test run, to see if the gas worked. It did. In early 1995, Asahara found out police were planning a raid. To stop it, he struck first. On March 20th, 5 members got on Tokyo subway trains during rush hour. They placed bags of liquid sarin on the floor, punctured them with umbrella tips, and walked off. 13 people died. Over 5,500 were injured, some permanently blinded, some with lasting nerve damage. The Tokyo subway system, one of the busiest in the world, became a death trap. Commuters collapsed on platforms. People vomited blood. Emergency responders had no idea what they were dealing with. Asahara was caught 2 months later, hiding in a secret room in one of the cult's compounds. He was tried, convicted, and executed in 2018, along with 12 other top members. But the damage was done. Shinrikyo showed the world that cults were not just isolated communes in the jungle. They could be sophisticated, wealthy, armed, and willing to kill thousands in the name of an apocalypse that never came. Heaven's Gate, Marshall Applewhite. In 1975, a man named Marshall Applewhite and a woman named Bonnie Nettles started a group called Heaven's Gate. They believed that Earth was about to be recycled, wiped clean, and that the only way to survive was to leave your human body behind and ascend to a higher level of existence. They called themselves Do and T, and they told their followers that a spaceship was coming to pick them up. For over 20 years, the group lived in isolation. Members gave up everything: their families, their jobs, their identities. They lived together in rented houses, wore identical clothing, cut their hair the same way. Some male members even underwent voluntary castration to eliminate sexual desire, because physical bodies were just vehicles, temporary containers for the soul. In 1997, the Hale-Bopp comet was approaching Earth. Applewhite told his followers that a spaceship was hidden in the comet's tail, and that it was time to leave, to shed their human bodies and ascend. On March 26, 1997, police entered a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. They found 39 bodies, all members of Heaven's Gate, all lying in bunk beds, dressed in identical black shirts and sweatpants, Nike sneakers, purple shrouds covering their faces. Each one had a $5 bill and quarters in their pocket. For the journey, they had died in shifts, over 3 days, drinking a mixture of phenobarbital, applesauce, and vodka, then lying down, putting plastic bags over their heads, and waiting. The first group died. The second group cleaned up after them, covered them with shrouds, and then took their own doses. The third group did the same, until only 2 were left, who took the poison and hoped someone else would find them. Marshall Applewhite was among the dead, lying peacefully, convinced he was about to board a spaceship. There was no spaceship. There was no higher level. Just 39 bodies in a mansion, and families left behind wondering how this happened. The People's Temple, Jim Jones. Jim Jones started the People's Temple in the 1950s as a progressive church in Indiana. He preached racial equality, social justice, helping the poor, and people loved him. The church grew. Thousands of members, mostly African Americans and working-class families looking for hope. But behind the scenes, Jones was paranoid, controlling, obsessed with loyalty. He moved the church to California, then to a remote compound in Guyana called Jonestown. He told his followers they were building a socialist paradise, away from the racism and corruption of America. But Jonestown was a prison. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Members worked all day in the fields. Food was scarce. Punishments were brutal. And Jones held white night drills, where he would wake everyone up in the middle of the night and make them drink what he said was poison Kool-Aid, to test their loyalty. It was not actually poisoned, but he wanted them to be ready, to be willing to die for him. In November 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan flew to Guyana to investigate reports of abuse. Jones agreed to let him visit. But when some members tried to leave with Ryan, Jones panicked. He ordered his security team to ambush them at the airstrip. Ryan and 4 others were shot and killed. Jones knew it was over. The U.S. government would come. He would be arrested. His paradise would collapse. So he gathered everyone in the main pavilion, and he told them it was time. Time for revolutionary suicide. Time to die with dignity rather than be destroyed by their enemies. Over 900 people died that day, including 300 children. They drank flavor aid mixed with cyanide, sedatives, and tranquilizers. Some willingly, some forced. Parents gave it to their children first, then drank it themselves. Armed guards made sure no one escaped. Jim Jones died from a gunshot wound to the head. Whether he shot himself or was shot by someone else is still debated. Jonestown became the largest mass suicide in modern history, and a chilling reminder of what happens when one person has absolute control over hundreds of lives. When questioning is forbidden, when leaving is impossible, and when faith is weaponized. The Manson family. Charles Manson. Charles Manson never killed anyone himself, but he convinced others to do it for him. And that might be even more terrifying. In the late 1960s, Manson gathered a group of young followers, mostly women in California. He preached about an apocalyptic race war he called Helter Skelter, taken from a Beatles song. He believed that black Americans would rise up and kill all white people, except for Manson and his followers, who would hide in the desert and emerge afterward to rule the world. To trigger this war, Manson decided his followers needed to commit murders and make them look like they were done by black revolutionaries. On August 9, 1969, Manson sent 4 members to a house in Los Angeles. They killed 5 people, including actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant. They stabbed her 16 times and wrote "pig" on the door in her blood. The next night they killed 2 more people, Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, stabbing them dozens of times and carving "war" into Leno's stomach. Manson was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to death. Later commuted to life in prison when California abolished the death penalty. He died in 2017, but his legacy lives on as a symbol of how charisma and manipulation can turn lost, vulnerable people into killers. The lesson: these cults all had something in common: a charismatic leader, isolated followers, and a belief system that justified violence. They promised salvation, protection, a higher purpose, and they delivered death. The scariest part? Most of the followers were not monsters. They were ordinary people, looking for meaning, looking for community, looking for someone to tell them they mattered. And they found someone who used that need to control them, to manipulate them, to convince them that murder was mercy, that suicide was transcendence, that loyalty meant death. So stay curious, stay skeptical, and if someone ever tells you they have all the answers, run.